Hi friends, welcome to Bayou to Beltway. I'm your host Pearson Cross. Today we are talking to a reporter for the Louisiana Illuminator, and she is going to tell us about something that I think is on a lot of people's minds, and that is the upcoming legislative session, which in fact started Monday. So we're going to find out about that. Let me tell you just a little bit about Julie O'Donoghue. She was born in Washington, D.C., went to college at Macalester and St. Paul, majored in religious studies, not journalism, went to Northwestern for a master's, however, in journalism, and then had a gig with the Times-Picayune for 6 years before going to St. Louis Public Radio and then back to Louisiana to work for the Louisiana Illuminator, which is a member of the state newsroom group that functions as a non-governmental organization bringing news to enough around the country. Welcome to the show, Julie.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, we're happy to have you, and we're hoping to, spread some light on the upcoming legislative session. So, okay, let's dive right in. So, what are the priorities for Jeff Landry, and what's likely to happen in this legislative session?
Well, the two things he's really been pushing publicly are, one, the MAHA agenda, which is Make America Healthy Again. It's a mantra that Robert F. Kennedy Jr. uses, and so those bills are related to food additives, bringing whole foods, making them more available, and restricting some additives and colorings in food, and also a bill to prohibit water systems from putting fluoride into the water. And there's another bill that I guess I am referring to as the chemtrails bill, a bill that is about, supposed or alleged kind of things put into the atmosphere, I guess is what I would say. And then secondly, the governor has kind of been forced to reckon with the insurance issue. He had kind of tried to avoid having a direct role in insurance stuff before, but now he is sort of coming out with his own counter agenda regarding auto insurance. That's because there's a bunch of conservative freshmen who are trying to force his hand on auto insurance with some bills that would restrict the types of awards you could get if you sued someone for an auto accident. And those are aimed at mainly trying to kind of crack down, I guess, allegedly on trial lawyers or plaintiffs' lawyers.
So this issue is particularly hot, and I want to return to the MAHA agenda, but this insurance issue is particularly hot because it pits two very powerful groups in Louisiana politics, and that would be the people who are paying or who represent the insurance companies and have lots of lobbyists, and then the people who are suing those insurance companies, which are, in fact, the trial attorneys that we know so familiarly from seeing all those billboards around the state. So how's this likely to shake out?
I mean, I think it remains to be seen what's going to happen on this issue. So last year, I guess I should back up and say, when polling is done about what people in Louisiana are most concerned about, they tend to say insurance. It's the number one issue that comes up now. It's higher than crime. Now, whether that's really all about auto insurance, I think I'm a little skeptical about that. A lot of people, particularly in South Louisiana, are really concerned about their property insurance, their homeowners insurance mainly, skyrocketing, mainly because of disasters and flooding and hurricanes that we've seen. So I think that is a really big concern to people. But of course, auto insurance in Louisiana is high. It's always been high. There's always been a lot of speculation about why it's high. Some folks have always suggested it's high because we have a lot of people who are suing over auto accidents, and they specifically blame, I won't even call them trial lawyers, I will call them billboard lawyers. They specifically blame personal injury lawyers for our high auto insurance rates. I think that there is a question about really whether to what extent those personal injury lawyers and lawsuits about auto insurance wrecks are really what's driving the high premiums we pay here, because other states also have a lot of liberal laws when it comes to auto insurance wrecks and lawsuits, and don't seem to be paying the insurance prices that we are. So I think there is a question about, like, if you just sort of cap the amount of awards people can get if they sue over an auto wreck, will that really help curb our high auto insurance? I think that remains to be seen. Because we've done certain things around that before, most recently in 2020, and we're still paying high auto insurance. But nevertheless, there are these two groups. One is the insurance companies who insist that the issue is really that trial attorneys who make a lot of money helping people sue over auto wrecks are the problem. And then the trial attorneys are saying, no, the insurance companies are the problem. I would also say that there are some other business and industry groups that have a lot of truckers or a lot of, move a lot of product on the road, oil and gas companies,
right?
That probably are also kind of saying that maybe what the problem is the trial lawyers and the personal injury lawyers and the lawsuits. And again, I think it kind of remains to be seen whether that's actually the case or not.
Has there been an in-depth study about why insurance rates are so high in Louisiana and that we know of or could have access to? Because it seems like this is an issue that's calling out for data.
Right. Well, yes and no. So there have been some studies, I would say, by interest groups that say that, our liberal lawsuit laws, if you will, are causing this problem. But they're mainly by groups who are pushing on sort of a crackdown on those lawsuits. I think some of the issue behind trying to really figure out what's causing our high auto insurance rates is that the insurance companies are not required to make certain types of data available. So we don't necessarily know how they are calculating the premiums that we pay. And that has been a blind spot for people. We don't really know. They're a private industry. They're not required by our state to disclose certain types of information to us. So I think there's a little bit of not really knowing what goes into what's calculated in terms of your car insurance rate that you pay.
Right, but they are regulated by the state, and we do have a commissioner of insurance who, of course, I think is supposed to be taking the public part here. So one would think that we would have at least better access to some of that data. Let's talk about the MAHA Making America Healthy again. The issues you mentioned, food additives and fluoride and chemtrails, that all sounds like something a Democratic administration would be tilting at. When did the Republicans get, and by the way, we should say both houses of the state legislature have Republican supermajorities and there's a Republican governor. When did Republicans get concerned about these issues?
I think there was a big turning point during COVID. I think a lot of this dovetails with the anti-vaccine movement. People who don't want to avoid chemicals, who want to avoid anything that's not from the ground, so to speak, in their food. I think that movement, that group of people, sometimes they're called crunchy, actually exists on both ends of the political spectrum, but they've really been kind of brought to the forefront by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. And his role in the Trump administration. Yeah. So the bills that we're seeing are bills that would restrict the types of food additives and food colorings that could be used in school lunches. In public and private schools, if the private schools take money from the state, which many of them do, and it would also require SNAP users, so people who get what we have called food stamps, it would require them to not be able to buy certain types of food.
Right, like sodas and stuff, yeah. By the way, if you just tuned in, we're talking to Julie O'Donoghue, who is a reporter for the Louisiana Illuminator. Well, there's another big issue that I want to make sure we get to today, and that is the issue of the rewrite of Article 7. So Jeff Landry was pushing 4 different constitutional amendments. They went down to pretty convincing defeat. Are we going to see a rewrite of Article 7 of the Constitution in this legislative session?
I think we are going to, so of course to rewrite any part of the Constitution, including the budget and tax section, which is Article 7, requires the voters to vote on amendments. So I think we're going to see amendments run that are pieces of Amendment 2 from the March election that was defeated. They're going to try to kind of work them or break them up so that we have different concepts in different amendments, not all of those things going all together like we did in March. And they're going to try to pass those so that we can put them on a ballot. It's not clear what ballot they're going to be on. So it's not clear if this is going to be a fall election or maybe another spring election. We don't have another statewide election until fall of 2026. So regardless of where the amendments go, whether it's this fall or spring of 2026, it would be another statewide election. It would be like not a special election necessarily, but we would be having a statewide election when we wouldn't normally have one just for constitutional amendments, which is kind of what we saw in March, right?
Yeah, and so it'll be costing us $6 million.
Yeah, I mean, maybe not quite that because there are some municipalities and such that have elections in the fall, right? But it will cost us money. Whereas if we had a statewide election already, for example, if we waited till the Senate election in the fall of 2026, you just put the constitutional amendments on and it would not cost us. So that is a factor. I think, I think they're still working on what all the concepts are that they're going to try to run again that were in that original Amendment 2. But I wouldn't be surprised if you saw the teacher pay piece come back. So that is a sort of a strategy to drain certain trust funds that the state has and use that money to pay off debt to allow teachers to get a raise because the school districts will be paying less money towards debt relief, right? They'll be able to use that money to pay teachers more. I think you'll probably see that again. The other big piece that is the one that Governor Landry really wanted passed, in my opinion, is a piece to combine 2 savings accounts that the state has and release some money that normally goes to savings accounts and put it in what's called the general fund, which makes it easier to spend. So essentially, moving money that automatically goes into a savings account into like the state's checking account so they have more money to spend every year without having to tap into a savings account, which is a little bit more difficult to do. So that is something that he really wanted to see done, the legislative leadership really wanted to see done, and I think that they will probably try to get that on the ballot again.
Well, it certainly seems like there's going to be a lot to do in this legislative session. I mean, certainly the Trump administration is doing some things that may affect finances in Louisiana and elsewhere. So that's something we're going to have to pay attention as we move forward. Maybe we'll have you back and you can fill us in as we get farther into the session. That would be really great. We've been talking today to Julie O'Donoghue, who writes for the Louisiana Illuminator on political issues all across the state, and she's going to be covering this legislative session really closely. Thanks for joining us today, Julie.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.